good evening and good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And welcome to The Infinite Way, where spirituality meets humanity. And I am excited to have Dr. Maria Ian here as our guest today. And let me introduce her. Dr. Maria Ian is a results-oriented personal transformation coach, author, and public speaker. She comes from a family of medical doctors and has several decades of research and trauma recovery. In her legal career as a project manager for legal services providers for over 15 years, she counseled on human rights, immigration, and national security. As an author, she focuses on medical science and legal and psychological thrillers. On her website, www.caveofthesun.com, you'll find her in full writing gear at the age of 2, as she is self-taught. Dr. Ian has a PhD in political science, a JD in law, 6 professional certifications in health, fitness, 6 in TCM, and several in trauma counseling. Her research passion is the extraordinary, miraculous connection between spirit and energy behind the science. Is that too abstract? No worries. We are all together on that path Dr. Ian delights in, the opportunity to provide a guiding light. So we are going to do a continuation of a beautiful presentation that Dr. Maria Ian presented at the Expressions of Humanity Speakers Forum, which was called What You Always Wanted to Know About Ancestral Healing, but Were Too Afraid to Ask. And Dr. Ian, I want to welcome and thank you for joining us here on The Infinite Way.
Thank you, Enolia. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much.
And why don't you share with us just a little basis and foundation on your presentation that you presented so that we can get right into the conversation?
Yes, okay. So, as maybe many know who are watching, who are interested in personal transformation, traumatic events and trauma responses can change the way our genes work, right? So these changes don't affect our DNA sequence, but they can affect how our bodies read our hereditary material, right? So if you're interested in ancestral healing, meaning if you're interested in finding out how you should be reading your DNA, such as to expand and heal your genetic material, as opposed to, falling continuously again into the same, repeating the same traumatic events, being worried you get the same diseases that your parents, grandparents had, being stuck in various vicious cycles, then you have to, know how the changes in your environment can affect how your body reads that DNA. Now, when we say changes in the environment, that is something extremely important, because most of us probably think about the environment like physical material things, like people we interact with, like whatever environment we're in, like, the address where we live or where we are, the furniture and that surrounds us, stuff like that, very material things. However, in order to be really successful in healing our genetic material, by environment, we mean consciousness. Our consciousness, more specifically, we mean how our cells create consciousness as they interact with the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so the presentation that Enolia was referring to is specifying exactly that process, how our cells create consciousness in such a way that we are attuned with the universe at a very high level, such that we are not governed by that genetic material that, makes us do like fear-based decisions, go into the whole issue of I'm going to get the same illnesses as my parents, my grandparents, I'm repeating the same vicious cycles.
Exactly.
The same things happen to me over and over again. They've been happening for hundreds of years. Those kind of things,
Yeah.
right?
Let's break this down a little bit. Let's
Mhm.
break this down a little bit for our audience, because what you're talking about, people understand the concept, but they don't understand it. And I just want to make sure that our audience is understanding how important this is, right?
Yes. Mhm.
So, in simplistic terms, my grandfather was an alcoholic, my father's an alcoholic.
Yes.
Therefore, I'm predisposed. We get this thing, predisposed. I'm predisposed to
Yes.
be an alcoholic,
Yes.
and it's genetic.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
down in my gene and in my DNA that I have to, and we get this idea
Mhm. Mhm.
of this low-level energetic thinking
Yep. Yep.
that I have to be that. And it's
Yes.
not true. And what you're telling us is the science behind that. It's not true. And that if we are able to raise our conscious thinking to a higher level
Mhm.
of predisposition of understanding that I am a supreme being without limits.
Yes, the reason why a person would think that, okay, my grandfather was an alcoholic, my father was an alcoholic, or my grandmother was depressed, my mother was depressed, things like that, is because their consciousness is reading those genes in that manner. So your consciousness can read your genes, such as to say, my father was an alcoholic, my grandfather was, most likely I'm going to be one. And if I'm not going to be one precisely, I'm probably going to have some other problem that will then be explained by those factors, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's your consciousness is reading your genes in that manner. Your consciousness can read your genes. Oops, sorry.
That's okay.
My consciousness was just reading my genes. Yeah. I'm honest. Yeah, your consciousness can read your genes, such as to say, well, my grandfather, when he was a kid, he really had some brilliant idea that helped somebody do something wonderful, and and I'm going to do something similar. And you can read your genes such as to see only that one aspect. And here's what's going to happen. This is very interesting.
Okay.
If your consciousness reads your genes, such as to say, my grandfather, when he was a kid, had this amazing idea that really helped somebody do something phenomenal, that means you are working with your subconscious mind in a very specific way when you are making that decision to read your genes in that manner. So the story of your grandfather having been an alcoholic is going to change. It's going to be, okay, my grandfather, had this brilliant insight when he was a kid that really helped somebody. And that caused him to go through certain life transformations, where he encountered specified obstacles, that he had to address, and that maybe I'm making this up because this is not this is not from my real life, right? But that he had to counter and address, and that resolve themselves in such and such a way, for example, I could give you an actual real life example that would sound more, from my background.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. Please do. And then I want to share something too that I want to ask you.
Yes, please. For example, the reason why I got interested in this many years ago is because my great grandfather was in the military, and he died a very ugly death. Obviously, in the military, people don't die pleasantly, right?
Right.
And extremely ugly, right? And also involving other members of his family. And I was in a rage at that for my lifetime, because it affected my grandmother being the woman who raised me, right? So I was in a rage at that incident. And at all kinds of people, like once you are in a rage at an incident, you start labeling, right? You label, this is awful, horrible, unacceptable, disgusting. And then you relate all kinds of other individuals to that, right? And you label them, and you have this whole cloud of like resentment where you're just associating certain people to that event, and it's their fault. They're
Yes.
horrible, they're criminals, terrorists, they've got to be exterminated, we got to go out them. And like your whole life is just in this thing, right? Where you're going to do those, right? And then slowly I got myself to a point where because I was in that cycle, right? I was attracting certain kinds of very, very bad people, right? And then I got to a point where my whole life basically collapsed because of the evil individuals you attract, because you're going to attract some horrible people, as you can imagine, because you're like you're recreating a war, you're recreating massacre in a war in the here and now, and what kind of people is that going to attract, right? So that's when I started to realize, I did meditation, spiritual practices just to get myself, because I had to get myself out of there. That's when I started to realize it's really cyclical, like you're really repeating, you are in a war in the here and now, you're recreating a war, right? And you're just repeating blah, blah. So then I became interested in trauma recovery, because it's really trauma you have, right? And I did the actual program. It took me almost 2 years, where you have to clear the specified area that I mentioned at the conference, right? Which is the pre-8 months one, because that's where the trauma really gets released if you hit that area correctly.
Okay.
Right. Yeah. And then this is all a process. This is work. This doesn't happen overnight, because this is 100 years old. This doesn't happen overnight. Right. But then I got to that higher awareness where it's really, you're created in the universe, and that's where you have safety. And that's an experience. It's that you are in the universe and nothing can harm you. Really nothing anywhere. Even if the whole universe were to collapse, it will not harm you, right? And that changed my perception of that event, right? That, because I was able to go back and see, why did he die? Because, again, individuals in the military, they know they're most likely going to die, right? They know it's not like a glamorous job where they're going to, get medals and get statues, right? They know that. So the question is, so then why did he do that, right? And that's when I started to understand the story behind it, like the story of valor, the story of courage, and of integrity, and what that means, but also what it does not mean, right? Because you are up against a lot, because in popular culture, like, militaries get all kinds of public relations, that interpret courage and integrity in some very, kind of superficial, tacky ways, just to attract, followers, things like that. So as I was telling myself the correct story, the story as it was at that time, as my great-grandfather actually lived it, right? Then the fact that he died this horrible, ugly death it's like so small, it dissolves itself, right? Right. It's not, it's what it is. Yeah. It's what it is, and it's not something that's like, it's not something that's bigger than the universe. It's not tragic. It's not the end of the world. It's really, it dissolves itself, right? That's the bottom line. It dissolves itself.
Well, isn't that the case with a lot of stories that we create around ourselves in the first place? So this whole story of, we took the first example, my grandfather's an alcoholic, my father's an alcoholic, therefore I'm predisposed to be one. And that's part of why our DNA is reading A stories, because of the acceptance of that so openly, so full-heartedly.
Yes,
And that,
exactly.
like, when we go to medical professionals, the first thing they go is, okay, what did your ancestors have, or what did your relatives have, so we understand what you're predisposed to. And really what they're doing is that they're saying, okay, how do you usually read your own DNA?
Yes, exactly. It's not helping us
Because
at all because it's just enforcing that. It's
it's
just,
enforcing it.
yeah. Mhm.
And what I wanted to say is that, like, so from my modality, being an energetic worker and working from a shamanistic point of view, one of
Mhm.
the things when we work with ancestry is that we talk about the fact that you don't have to carry your ancestors' burdens. And one of those
See,
switches,
Enolia,
one
you,
of the,
yes, switches, you got to carry it the right way. I mean, that's, you cannot escape it because you cannot change your body. We were
no,
put into this world within this body for a purpose, right? But
right.
you can change it a lot. I mean, it's up
Yeah,
to you.
you can change the read of your
Yes,
body. And
yes,
when you
yes.
change the read of what you accept and don't accept, then
Mhm,
you change the course of how
mhm.
your life furthers in the future as you walk the path through life, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
this idea that we always implement the seed, it stops with me.
yes.
It stops with me. So all of these things our ancestors carried, they were their burdens and everything, but it stops right here with
See,
me.
right, but the thing is, they were not really burdens. We are reading them as burdens. You know,
Mm.
for them, those things had meaning and reality that is different from the burden that we are reading into it. You see?
However, what
Yeah.
what would you term as disease then? Because that's what in my mind, when I
Okay.
characterize a burden, I'm
Oh,
thinking about the negative things that they purposely or insist that we're going to pass on from one to another. So maybe I should change the wording of that.
yes,
Okay, not
yes,
necessarily burden, but the negative aspects of, like, because this negative thing happened, then it's got to pass down generation to generation, and it
yes. There
doesn't.
you go. No, no. We are reading something in our subconscious as negative
Mhm.
that we are then reading as causing disease.
Right.
Now, when the problem is that moment in our subconscious when we are reading it as negative,
Hmm.
you see, that's the energy that we have to clear. Because
Yes.
yes, you
Yes.
see, it's us reading it. They are long dead. They did their duty on this world. They served humanity to the best of their abilities, and that is it. We are reading into that because
Hmm.
of how we are, our environment, like the culture that we were born in, the race or ethnic background that society tells us that we have, the other labels that we get constantly from society. Male, female is perceived very differently today than God knows in other eras, right? So because of that labeling, we read that event in a way such as to think, okay, it's gonna cause me disease, obviously, right?
Right.
Can
And
only. Yeah.
the beauty of your work, the
Mhm.
beauty of your work is that you share with us how to change that decision. You,
Yes,
you share with it. So
yes.
talk a little bit more about just the process by which we might have to go through to really fundamentally change the course of our life, as well as a little bit about your book, because there your book is right there on your left side. And that's
Yes.
the basis of the foundation of your work. I would love for you to share just a little bit more.
Okay, so the book is very general. Like, the book is just the most current medical research these past couple of years that
Mhm.
agrees that we have certain energy molecules in our bodies that determine how our bodies work, right?
Okay.
So it's not like you go to a doctor and you say, I've got pain here, I've got a rash here, I've got a headache. It's not, you can forget about using that language, right?
Right.
Completely. You got to look at the energy building blocks that make our cells move and recreate themselves, that make our organs work together in a specified way, that connect us to a larger spiritual reality. That's what you got to look at, right? So my book basically specifies what those energy building blocks are and the main pathways in our bodies according to which those operate, right? And then looking at the most recent medical science that is in agreement with all of that. So it's nothing outlandish, it's nothing new agey, it's something very, very, very real and very concrete, right? So that's a very general background to change how people think of, I've got an ache here, I've got a pain here, I need to take aspirin, I need to take this medication. They can forget about that. That's all just very, very superficial, right?
Right.
Right. It has nothing to do with the energy. I mean, if anything, all those medications can actually disturb our energy flows even more. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So, and it happens to many people. So that's just, the book is to change the way of thinking, right?
Okay.
Now, my work is very deep self-hypnosis. Well, I have two aspects to my work. One is the positive psychology, which is very easy, which you can get some great results with, and it works, but it is not really the healing, the trauma that we spoke earlier. I mean, it does do its job. You can change your daily habits, you can implement certain practices, you can teach yourself how to make those higher level decisions and when to make them. So all of that you can do with positive psychology. It's not an issue, right? But if you want to go really deep and resolve that very basic trauma, then you got to, self-hypnosis is the only way. I'm a big fan of self-hypnosis, right? For that, you need the right mindset. So you cannot approach these sessions and say, okay, I'm going to try it out and see if it works. Because that means you already said it won't work. It won't work.
Right. I
so
agree.
There's no point.
You commit 100%, 150%, or you walk away.
Yes, exactly. See, and that's a little bit different as with the positive psychology, because with the positive psychology, you can say, okay, I'm going to try these different exercises. I'm going to see which one works better for me. I'm going to do maybe that, right? And you can do that, but it's not going to be really fully beneficial over the long run. But with self-hypnosis, you got to commit. You got to say this will work, and there is no doubt on any planet that it may not, right? And then you got to move back on the time track. You got to start with certain pain points, because you're going to get commands. Like self-hypnosis is me. I'm going to give you commands to go to certain areas in your subconscious, right? And clear those one by one until, and see, this is the thing. If you do this consistently for a period of time, in my case, I did it for 1.5 years, you will get to that very basic area, right? But now you got to know you're working with your subconscious, which is not rational. So what's going to happen? Okay, you're going to break through a lock, right? You're going to solve some trauma, and then you're going to get out of the hypnosis. And this is why mindset is important. You're going to get out of the hypnosis, and you're going to say, well, I still feel the same. This didn't work. Well, it's not true. It's not true. It may happen that either tomorrow or a couple of weeks from now or a couple of months from now, you are going to realize things becoming very, very different. And it's just going to happen, because what sort of positive psychology causes a problem, because it teaches people you can know everything, you can make those decisions, you can teach yourself those systems, you can do those things and just go through the system, implement your habits, and it's going to work. But that thinking is so small. Our subconscious is huge, right? So your subconscious is going to do its work. If you hate it, if you love it, it doesn't matter. It is going to do its work. So if you are in a very deep hypnosis, self-hypnosis session, and you notice, okay, something happened, but then I'm out of it, and well, nothing happened, everything is the same. That's beside the point. The moment will come And it can be very unexpected, where the stories will start to change, where certain people are going to drop off. Maybe you thought those people were incredibly important at some point, but they're going to drop off, right? You're going to approach certain people very differently. And it's not going to be rational. There's not going to be a daily plan that's going to tell you, okay, go and talk to this person and tell them that. No, the movement will happen, right?
Right.
Right. And then you got to get to that basic area, which is before, I just want to use 8 months cautiously, because I don't want to say something is going to happen at 8 months.
Right.
But it's early infancy, 8, 7, 6, whatever, and back, where our energy that we have in our bodies and our cells is very free floating still. I'm using very general terms. I mean, I'm just going to say free floating because people can see and understand what free floating means, right? And it picks up genetic material in a very, straightforward, clear way, right? And including going back before birth, because birth itself, obviously, the moment that the baby passes, into the world, obviously that's very important, but that's not really what birth means when we talk about the subconscious, right? We mean by birth, when were you created in the universe? And that is the cycle of energy that was breathed into you by the processes that create us as humans, right? And that we have no decision. Our rational mind has no decision to determine when that happened. And okay, I think it's extremely arrogant for people to say, okay, your soul entered your body at whatever, 2 months, at 2 years. You cannot make that decision. It's
determination.
It's disgustingly arrogant, right? Yeah, exactly. So you're gonna get into that basic infancy and prenatal area to clear that, trauma that is there. And it will happen, right? If you do it long enough, with the right mindset. And that is when you're going to have that feeling, as I said, with the perfect safety in the universe, where really nothing can harm you, right? That you can then use throughout when somebody gets on your nerves during the day, or you get angry with somebody, you get impatient, you get into a situation, say, oh no, I don't want to deal with this again, right? Or you're going to get some physical aches, you're going to feel tired, you're going to feel, lack of initiative. You can go back to that moment of safety. You're going to have access, you're going to own it, right? And you can use that to change your perspective on, and it's going to change. Like, I just want to give you one very real example.
Okay.
I was throughout my life, I had a problem with a certain kind of person. Okay. I think many people have. I mean, I think about anybody alive has problems with certain people. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And I went to CVS the other day, which is a drugstore, right? And I went in and I looked to my left to the cash register to see how many people were in line, right? To see if I was busy or not, right? And there was this one guy in line who was exactly that kind of person. I said, oh, fuck, what the heck? What's this idiot doing here? Well, I mean, I should get out of this store, go home. I do not want to see this kind of individual. And then I went, okay, so now you know something that's different. And I looked at him like this, right? And so I changed, I turned on that switch, I changed. I put myself into that higher area of awareness. And let's look at this individual from that higher area of awareness. And suddenly he's just somebody just looking. Just looking. It's fine. There's, and I sort of smiled at him and he looked back, and that's it. And you can do that. You can do that with any number of people. So that's the process. That's the process, of the background of the actual program. Yes.
Yes. So let's deep dive into that 0 to 8 months and
prenatal. It goes back to that. Yes.
But I want to dive into the unlimitless.
Yes, please.
Unlimited. list the fact that we're energy beings without limits.
Yes, we are right now. Yes.
That limit is learned through a lot of our
Yes.
humanity when we see things in a very finite way.
Yes.
I mean, you so eloquently spoke about it within your speech, and I would love for you to just tell our audience a little bit about the fact that we come in unlimited, and then what happens over time if we allow it to.
Right. So as I said, I think it's very arrogant for people to say, okay, your spirit entered your body or you start feeling pain at a certain, whatever trimester, that's when the baby starts feeling pain. So that means something, or your spirit enters your body at whatnot time period, right? I think it's extremely arrogant to make those determinations, because we do not know, and we cannot know. We are beings of energy that are birthed in the universe, by the universe, by the cycles that make us human, right? We are so we are put onto that cycle to accomplish certain things, to come into this world and do certain things. And when the cycle is complete, we return, we go back home. Right. So that puts death into a whole different perspective.
Category, right? Yes.
Whole different.
I agree.
Yes. Yeah. And I have seen several people die natural deaths. And this is a separate conversation we can have, but a natural death has no tragedy, no pain, no disaster, no hysteria attached to it whatsoever. It's just you can see the person's spirit goes back home. And that happens according to each person, according to their own cycle. Some people, their spirit goes back home and their physical processes, they're still operational, so they're not yet brain dead for a couple of months. Others, like the next week, they're brain dead. So we cannot determine that, right? What we should do is find a way to work with the cycles, with the energy cycle that the universe puts us on, such that we read our hereditary genetic material correctly and expansively. So we are here for a purpose, and we solve those ancestral genetic issues. And then when we go back home as beings of light, and not as angry, tragedies, haters, I'm going to get back at you, whatnot, right? Because that causes other issues, right? So once we then have been born in the universe, we are life at creation in complete perfect safety. There's really nothing whatsoever that can harm us, right? Then I believe we actually choose our parents. I mean, so it's our fault. We actually choose our parents. And there's a very specific moment when that happens for a very specific reason. And our mother's body is the gate through which we pass into this world. So we actually owe our mothers a lot, because she gave us her body for us to come here, right? Right.
That's right.
Yes, right.
Gateways.
And then, first, whatever, 6, 7, 8 months, whatever number you want to attach to that, I'm attaching a number to that because I studied that, and I studied pictures of me as an infant. I spoke to people who raised me as an infant. I know specific things that happened, and I then attached that to research. So that's why I say 8 months, right? But once we become more and more, into this world, that's where, again, we get labeled, we start to think, we get programmed, right? We
get programmed, and that's where the limitation comes.
That's where the that is where the limitations come from, because and this is where trauma arises, because you can be programmed, again, in such a way that's gonna emphasize and worsen certain things that were there when you came here, that were there in the flow of your genetic material when you came through your mother's womb into this world. It's going to emphasize those things, and you're going to be unprepared, and you're not going to know how to work with those things, and you're going to start labeling, because you got to deal with this, and you're going to start coming up with words and terms to attach to subconscious events that you don't know how to work with, because the educational system does not teach you that. I mean, it actually can teach you things that are very, very harmful, right? To you, if it teaches you the wrong thing at the wrong time, it can really aggravate those hereditary flows, you know, and you don't have no clue that's happening. You may go through your whole life with that aggravation and die, you know, in a rage and resenting everybody down that entire track. You have no clue, right, that that's what's happening. Yeah, and that's how we form our personality, because we label different responses, you know, in different ways, that our personality traits, like, oh, you're that kid you just never liked, you never liked to eat meat, or you're just kid, you were always shy as a kid, right? Because those become personality traits, right? And that's where the finite comes in. That's where the finite comes in. And you know, I'm sure you know that story of, you can have, you know, two individuals who have the identical, you know, genetic predisposition, right? And one of them ends up being an alcoholic. The other one ends up being a superstar millionaire who's got foundations helping millions. And they've got the identical genetic predisposition, okay? This is very real, right? Why? Because one person, and it's not their fault, this is the other thing, one person did not know, and maybe neither one of them knows how to work with their subconsciousness. Neither one of them knows that. But one was in situations where all the bad stuff, his body read all the bad stuff, everything that came, that he perceived, that came to him, put it back into the bad stuff. Your body's going to read the bad stuff, right? The other one maybe went for a walk one day and just saw, wow, you know, I really love, like, nature is gorgeous. I feel at peace. And then they had an idea. Now, what happened is, in that moment, for whatever reason, and we don't know, because we haven't studied how to work with our subconscious, these are just two random people, right? Something got him to move in the right way, where he read his genetic material. Wow, maybe I had somebody 300 years ago who was an inventor, and that's what I read. That's what I saw, right? So what we want to do, that's why I do my trainings and my classes. We want to know how to learn, how to work with our subconscious. So we're not either one of those two people. We're not somebody who just happens to be like outrageous for their whole life, not being an alcoholic, or somebody who's just like super famous and everybody says, oh, how did he get there? You know, why can I not do that, right? We want people to control their power. And you, in controlling your power, you serve the universe. You're providing a service to the universe, because when you go back home and your cycle is complete, you want to go back home in such a way that you've made this world a better place.
That's right.
Right. Because that helps everybody. That helps all galaxies. It helps all realities. It helps everybody everywhere. In order to do that, either you're going to be super, you know, like a special kind of person who just gets it, right, but doesn't really know how, or you can learn how to work with your subconscious the right way, where you can on a daily basis take those small steps, you know, and work towards a better humanity, right? So it's all very doable, and it's all science-based. There's no mystery at all in anything I said. It's all very concrete.
No, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But people don't like to take the time to learn about the science behind that which they speak about so generically or, you know, openly. And it's just like, oh, well, yeah, I just know it happens. And it's just like, take the time to learn, take the time to understand. The subconscious is very, very powerful. Working with the subconscious, I agree with you 100% in terms of the fact that we can speak to our subconscious repetitively to reprogram some of the reading that we do.
Yes.
And it makes all the difference in the world and all the difference in our life path.
Yes.
So this is really, really powerful work. You know, we could talk for hours and hours. So
they're great examples. Yes.
We're going to have another conversation, because I love this, and I do want to explore the other end of this, which is death. So I want to officially invite you back. Okay.
I would be happy to, yes.
But for now, you tell everybody how to get in contact with you, we're going to put it down in the social media descriptions, but how to get in contact with you, the nature of how you like to work with people before we end.
Okay, so I have a contact form on my website being www.caveofthesun.com. So if you fill out that contact form, I'll get back to you very expeditiously, or you can email me at mariaianauthor@gmail.com. Now, all my classes are one-on-one Zoom calls. I love doing in-person sessions. I've done them for a long time, but with COVID, everything moved online. And then I actually saw the great benefits of working online because, right, you don't have to go somewhere. You're not restricted to a geographical area or a certain kind of people, right? So it's all Zoom calls, one-on-one. I have one 4-month program, which is customizable because some people, again, love the positive psychology. It works. If you're into positive psychology, the marvelous exercises you can do, you can get yourself going, transform, blah, blah. But if you want the deep stuff, the deep level, that works only to self-hypnosis. And if you are the kind of person who says, I want to change, and I know I can, then the self-hypnosis is for you. Because again, as we said earlier, if you're going to sit there and say, yeah, I'm going to do 1 or 2 sessions, and then if it doesn't work, I'm just going to try something else. I'm not going to work with you because you're going to damage yourself. Okay. Not going to do it. No. So okay. Those are the two Zoom calls, one-on-one, and creative expression is very important for me. So if you're the kind of individual who wants to tell their life story, whether through media, you want a public relations, branding for your business, you want to write your nonprofit book, you want to be able to express yourself on video, write scripts, all of the media that's related to your public relations, you know, that is an add-on. It depends on the package, how we customize it, right? But that's the basics. So it's either positive psychology or hypnosis, self-hypnosis, and then we can customize, you know, as we discuss what your needs are for real life, what you want in your real life with that, right? Beautiful. Yes, because you got to apply. And I'm a very hands-on person. It's application. If you got you got to apply, must. You know, it is not about theoretical understanding, it's application. You got to apply it.
So what I'm hearing is when you show up, you really need to show up. Be prepared, be ready, and be ready to work hard and show up, not for the doctor, but for yourself. Not for the doctor at all. No, because the doctors, the medical doctors, as you mentioned earlier, very, very truthfully, is like they ask you, okay, what conditions did you have, or what's your pain, or blah, and that's not helping you, because then the moment you say, okay, I have pain here, I have got this, you know, in that moment you're making yourself worse. You just made yourself worse. Yes. You gotta, okay. Yeah. Oh my God. Thank you so much for being here. Any last words you'd like to share with the audience and leave them with?
Yes, it works. That's the bottom line. You can bring about marvelous transformation, but the word to work maybe has wrong connotation, because people think work is, no, my God, I got to go to work. You know, I've got to work. You've got the wrong conceptions of what it means to work, right? When you work with your subconscious, it's a creative process. Once you are dialed in, you turn on the switch, it's going to work. Means it's going to flow. You are going to be in the flow. I want to leave you with one very important thing, right? Professional athletes, like really top-level athletes, top-level creative artists, they do the greatest work when they're in the flow. Now, the flow is an effortless state. There is no work, right? Okay. Yes. So that's the state you want to be in your daily life, and it's very manageable. Yeah.
Yes.
Mhm.
Dr. Maria Ian, thank you so, so much for being here. What a pleasure it was to have you. We're excited to have you back. Thank you. Thank you for your expertise, your time, and your sharing. And for those of you who have not seen Dr. Maria Ian's speech on expressions of humanity as a speaker, you should go to my YouTube. You should see it. You should go to Dr. Maria Ian's website. You should experience it. It is phenomenal. And I will actually put that link also here in this interview. So thank you again.
Thank you. It was a pleasure being here, Enolia. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And it was a pleasure having you, our honor. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Yes. All right. Bye-bye.